Here we go. It's another edition of the WTOP Huddle. The gang's all together. Wounded as it might be, George Wallace, he had the wrong picks for the Super Bowl. Rob Woodfork was half wrong, and he never likes to admit he's wrong, but that's okay. He's still smiling. Dave Preston, Chris Cichon is, yes, we have a Super Bowl that's coming up, but we have a break from NFL football as other things are going on. And I'm going to start right there with that, as the Wizards return to play after missing 6 games. And this is something that Mike Veck, who runs the American Association Independent Baseball League that started play and completed its season back in July, had said to me back in June. He said it's important to continue to try to do things. And that doesn't mean don't be safe. It means safe, but it was an admission that COVID-19 is not going away in the short term. We have to find a way to safely do things. We have technology and apps that you can organize where people sit. The Wizards recently played in Houston, where they're allowing 3,500 fans. Some jurisdictions are. Regardless of that debate, I think it's important that these leagues continue to try to do things, and not because they're greedy, because all these leagues are losing lots of money doing this. It mutes some of the damage. It employs many people beyond the players who are getting the big bucks. It would be nice to go back to a bubble situation like the NBA did, like the WNBA did, like Major League Soccer did, that was very successful. It's just unrealistic if you're going to try to get a 72-game schedule, and as the case with the NBA, and in the case of the NHL, a 56-game schedule. So I think it's important that these leagues and teams are trying to make it happen. And also, it needs to be noted, and because I witnessed this firsthand with the Wizards, the exhaustive measures they take to keep everyone safe and restrict your movement in the arena. Every night I have to stay in a yellow zone. I can't get anywhere near the players. I can't get to the green zone. I'm not sure what that is. The red zone is where the players are. And even doing that, because of the nature of COVID-19, you still have situations like the Wizards had to deal with, where they missed 6 games. So I think it also should be noted that anybody it's a champion of any of these leagues during this period of time should be celebrated, because that was just one more challenge. Seasons are always difficult for every team in every league, but that's just one more challenge that nobody had a playbook to prepare for. And so full credit to the champions and the teams that can navigate through these seasons. All right, so that's my starting point. George Wallace, I'll start with you. You want to pick it up with that talk, or what's on your mind this week? We're going to just kind of go all over the map this week, and it's a free-form flowing discussion, or at least free-form.
Say that 3 times fast. Free-form flowing discussion. No, I agree with you, and I must say I would think that Adam Silver gets a lot of credit for how they went through the bubble before, and I think the way they're handling things now. I know it's difficult, and Dave, you see it firsthand. You're talking about the Wizards, and Bradley Beal had to sit out there one day because I forget who he was guarding on Philadelphia. The way they do the contact tracing, and then all of a sudden, they play another team who had it. Now I found out the Spurs game was that postponed this week? Did I read that after the Wizards just played the Spurs?
Yeah, no, you really need a scorecard to follow along. Yeah. But you also, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, right? Because COVID has not been cured. It still exists out there. And because of that, you have to navigate not only through sports, but through life as best as you can.
And I think that, and I don't want to hear people blaming, the Wizards for this situation. I mean, they were doing everything correctly. It's just the way that it happened. And it's just basically unlucky. And the good thing is they're feeling better. The guys are coming along and they're going to get back on the court. They were off for a couple of weeks, played the Spurs. Then you get to face your old pal, John Wall. So I think the NBA does get a lot of credit for the way they're doing it, just as the NHL did. And the NFL, talk about leagues going through this. They went through the entire regular season playoffs, not one game canceled. We saw the other email today from the league, 0 positive tests among players after 5,000 tests this past week, and just 2 among other personnel. So the way the NFL has handled it, I think they deserve a lot of credit as well. As you said, it's just an ongoing situation. You're learning day by day how to deal with it. There is no playbook. And look, the fact that they're getting through this, I give the teams a lot of credit. I know college has been a little bit different, but look, you still look at the percentage of games and teams that have been on pause in college basketball. It's not in the grand scheme of things, 300 and some whatever teams, it isn't that many. So I think that you are 100% right that these leagues have been able to forge through this, and they're finding a way to deal with it and keeping their product on the court, on the field. And look, everybody's going to get through it, but at the same time, you find a way to do it, and I give them a lot of credit for doing just that.
And again, as you said, the NFL did not have any games canceled, but postponed, and they had to adjust on the fly as well. Speaking of which, adjusting on the fly, Rob, what else is jumping out at you this week as we have the Super Bowl set? The Capitals are off and playing. What triggers your emotion?
What triggered my emotion was Green Bay settling for a field goal on a 4th and 8, 4th and goal at the 8-yard line, instead of giving it to Aaron Rodgers, the presumptive MVP this season. But that's neither here nor there at this point. Congratulations to Tom Brady for being in the Super Bowl for every year since eternity. And he'll probably get close to winning it if he doesn't win it. That said,
you sound upset. You sound like you're taking it a little personal. You okay?
I just like to be right with my picks. Okay.
Oh, well, hey, I'm with you on that. I went home team there too.
But here's the silver lining in the Buccaneers winning. For those of us with the civic pride, one Byron Leftwich is the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are actually the first team in the NFL's history to go to a Super Bowl with all of their coordinators are black. And I think it just further shows how shameful it is that the NFL is where it is in terms of its diversity hiring. We have now 2 black coaches in the league out of 32 teams. That is ridiculous. There are only 4 coaches of color out of 32. That is ridiculous, especially when you have guys in the league. And I think the shining example right now is Eric Bieniemy, because everything you said, NFL owners, that you want from a head coach, Eric Bieniemy has. He's works closely with a quarterback. He's at the helm of the most explosive offense the NFL has seen, at least in recent years, maybe ever. And what else does the guy have to do? Andy Reid sings his praises. He's got assistants all over the league. What else does the guy have to do? It's like the goalposts keep getting moved. Every time you say this is what you want, and then you have coaches of color do that thing, and now it's, we like this special teams coach that nobody's ever heard of, or this assistant who has 4 years experience at the pro level. It's maddening. So in this Super Bowl, we've got 2 black offensive coordinators, of which there are only, off the top of my head, I believe only 4 in the league, period. So you've got 2 of them squaring off here, and probably neither of them is going to end up with a head coaching job. It's just absolutely shameful, and I hope that the NFL does something more substantive. And I know that they've taken some steps with the Rooney Rule in terms of having some draft compensation for teams when coaches of color and front office people of color are hired. But something absolutely needs to be done in order to rectify this, because it really is a bad look for a league that is 70% black in terms of its player population. And increasingly, we have more and more quarterbacks who are the faces of franchises, and yet we can't stand to hand the keys of a franchise off to a head coach. So a head coach of color. So things have got to change. And that's the thing that has me in way more of a foul mood going into the Super Bowl than anything that Green Bay did or did not do on Sunday.
And you bring up that apparently you can't legislate a correction, because the Rooney Rule, while it exists and while it might have good intentions, it obviously has not worked out the way it should have worked out. And
quite frankly, I think the problem is there's one owner of color in the NFL. There needs to be more diversity in ownership. And I think that you would see that reflected more in the hiring process if it wasn't, because what do a lot of NFL owners say when, they're standing next to their new hire head coach? Oh, I relate to this guy on a level. He reminded me of me when I was that age. And well, you're not going to get a lot of that if you're a black head coach, if all of the owners are white. So there needs to be more diversity in the people who are making these hires. And I think then you will see that trickle effect.
And again, a shout out to Byron Leftwich, also Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, Keith Armstrong, the special teams coach for the Buccaneers. G, you're up next. What's burning on your mind this week?
What's on my mind this week, switching gears, I'm going to be like Preston and talk a little bit of college basketball because I covered the University of Virginia this past Saturday while I was sports anchoring. And this is a team that once again is national championship caliber with Sam Hauser, the transfer from Marquette, absolutely on fire at the end of the game. And then they were only set, I say only, should have been more. They wiped out Preston's Syracuse Orange, but dominated Syracuse on Monday night. Virginia, just a completely well-rounded team. Kihei Clark, their leader guard, missed his first 8 shots, hits a pivotal one with only a minute left on Saturday night. The team believed in him. So Virginia is championship caliber, and let's now see this week if Maryland against Wisconsin can get another win against a ranked Big Ten opponent. They played outstandingly against Minnesota on the road, but for whatever reason have been allergic to College Park a little bit. So can they get a win against the Badger team and keep this momentum rolling? I'm not really sure. I don't know if I see the talent from a scoring standpoint being able to win more ball games in the Big Ten than lose, but we'll see. I don't know. Preston or George, you guys go to the arena. Do you believe in this team, and do you believe they're tournament worthy or tournament caliber?
We'll go to the Syracuse Orangeman sweater.
Go ahead, Syracuse.
Yeah. I think they're I think they can make the tournament. I think they're a team that's going to have to play their way into the tournament. Maryland. There right now are 10 really good teams in the Big Ten. Maryland's in that bottom 4 with Northwestern. There's Rutgers. There's Penn State, Nebraska. Penn State, Nebraska are hopeless. Maryland can still play its way into the top 10 of the Big Ten, and there are 14 schools in a league which is named 10. Not even going to get into that this time. But I think that they don't have the alpha dogs that they did last year. Anthony Cowan, Jalen Smith, those were 2 strong personalities. And while Darryl Morcell is a fantastic player, he's a great program kid, he's their alpha dog, he's not a difference maker as much on the floor. So Maryland is going to be on the bubble where every day you check out Joe Lunardi's thing on ESPN and say, oh, they're one of the last 4 teams in. Ooh, they're one of the first 4 teams out. You know, looking around the area too, they have the best prospects of a team inside the Beltway because Georgetown is 3-8. They haven't played in a couple weeks due to COVID. And meanwhile, they're watching former players like James Akinjo star at Arizona. Mac McClung had a great game for Texas Tech Monday evening despite a loss. So that program is taking a step back. They'll get better next year. George Washington and George Mason have lost multiple games as well, not just to other foes in the A-10, but to COVID. And they've had games postponed and switched here and there. It's very difficult for, as Dave sees, for an NBA team to maintain a sense of normalcy when you're losing games. I can only imagine what it's like for 18 to 21-year-olds. And there's a chance that we might not have the NCAA tournament. We're already not going to have it as it normally is with sites moved and with days moved of the tournament. But I'm hoping that we have a tournament where, say, Team A wins on, to get to the Sweet 16. Team A does not test positive for COVID. Right. 2 days later, it has to shut down for 2 weeks because the beauty of the NCAA tournament is that there's constant turnaround and you are always moving on to what's next rather quickly. If COVID steps in and say knocks out of Kansas for 2 weeks after they win a second or even, say a Final Four game, and all of a sudden you've got Gonzaga and Baylor playing, well, nobody can play just yet. You'd rather have the tournament than not, but one is bracing oneself for a messed up tournament, and not just with upsets, but with players testing positive.
Yeah, it's a reality, and that's why you credit the champion, and it's not a negative of whoever struggles through it. Again, with the current Wizards situation, I don't know what curve you now grade their season on because there's just no plan where you sit out 6 games and all of a sudden restart and try to get going again. Oh, by the way.
And then try to get going against a team you haven't beaten in 21 years.
Yes. 1999.
21 years?
That was
Mitch,
it was the last time they won
Antonio.
in San Antonio. They've beaten them here, but they haven't won in San Antonio since 1999.
Mitch Richmond, 31 points. I was there that night. Gerard King.
That's a nice pull right there.
It's an easy, low-hanging fruit. I actually called that game, and Gerard King was actually on our Wizards team, and he was part of the Spurs in 1998 because they were the defending, or the 98-99 season, they were the defending.
I was a freshman in college. Where were you, G?
12 years old, getting reamed out by my parents because I wanted to go to the mall and they wouldn't let me.
And I'm announcing my retirement after this WTOP. Anybody want to make a Deshaun Watson case, a quarterback case?
I'm going to do that. I'm going to jump off, but I'm going to go on record saying I don't want Matt Stafford here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, you got to show your work on that. You got to show your work on that.
I just don't. I don't want to give up first-round picks for him. I don't want to give up a defensive player for him. I'm going for Deshaun Watson. Or if you want to give me Aaron Rodgers because he's leaving Green Bay, I'll take that too. Got to go.
Okay. Well, way to roll a grenade in the conversation and then just kind of roll out. That's great.
That's right. No time for rebuttal.
No,
anybody else want to make a case?
I do.
Actually, let's first of all, with respect to the quarterback, I think that we can all agree that Deshaun Watson is the best of the available options, given his age, given his skill set, given the fact that he probably fits in any and all systems. I think that's the guy that you want to get, regardless of who else is available. But when you talk about Matt Stafford, in terms of fallback options, I don't feel as strongly against him as George does. But, you look at what Washington was last year. What were they? They were a team that didn't have good quarterback play, and they were playing from behind all the time. Well, who's a better fit than the guy who has 30 fourth-quarter comeback victories over the course of his career, most in the league since he got drafted in 2009? I think it's a good fit from the standpoint that he would give some stability to that position. He stays healthy. He's an effective player. The only thing that gives me pause about him is that he feels a little Kirk Cousins-y in that he's a guy who's going to put up numbers, but he can put up numbers on a bad team. And I know we'll point to Deshaun doing that this past season, but I think he's a guy that you can win a championship with. When you talk about Stafford, he's played on way more bad teams than he has good teams, even if his performance has been pretty steadily good over the course of his career there. So that's the only thing that would give me pause. He would be way cheaper than Deshaun Watson, but I think in a lot of cases you get what you pay for.
Well, Kirk Cousins is an adverb. Kirk Cousins. I never thought that. Dave Preston, you ought to jump in.
Yeah, I think you make the move for either of them. Obviously, if you're able to make the move to get Deshaun Watson, you do that. This is a quarterback league. This is an offense. Good offenses and great offenses thrive in this league. And Washington has had a bad offense for the last couple of years since Kirk Cousins left. And I think that the material that Deshaun Watson or Matt Stafford will have around him is better than the material that Kirk Cousins left. I think the coaching is better. I think the front office is going to be better, whatever situation these quarterbacks get into. And say you only have 3 or 4 years of Matt Stafford with the way that free agency is set up with the NFL nowadays, more often than not, your nucleus is only going to be there for 3 or 4 years because all of a sudden, then your Montez Sweat needs a contract that will price him out of the marketplace, locally. So I think you make the move. You cough up the first-round pick, especially if it's this year 19. I think didn't they take Josh Doxson with 18 or 19 a few years ago? So
you're like 21, 21 or 22, yeah.
You're not losing a guaranteed contributor by trading away 19. And if you throw in a second, well, you know what? You're probably going to have there are a lot of good players that you can take at second in the years to come. So I think you make the move for Stafford if you can't get Watson, and you solidify your position. Last week, I think I made the point that it would be, if you were to bring Deshaun Watson to DC, it would be like trading for Sonny Jurgensen. Complete franchise game changer, even though Norm Snead wasn't horrible, but it's a person who can be the face of the franchise and 50 years later. Sonny Jurgensen is still the best quarterback the Burgundy and Gold have ever had.
Looks good with the cigar in his mouth. And by the way, you can Google all these guys and find out if you don't know. Chris, you were rubbing your palms, which means you got something good. What's your last word?
I was rubbing my palms. It was more like rubbing my really dry hands. Anybody else dealing with that problem that with all this soap and hand washing and stuff like that, your hands are totally ravaged? I know I'm jumping off topic here.
No, that's right. I get it.
You're staying safe. That's good.
But the huddle is all about good hygiene.
Yeah. I am trying to practice that. As far as the quarterback goes, I'll be quick. I agree with pretty much all the things you said, especially the Sonny Jurgensen comment. It is a game-changing franchise decision. I just don't see it happening with Deshaun Watson. He let everybody know over the weekend, I guess, that spilled it out to the media that it was the Jets as his top option and the Dolphins number 2. And, he has this no trade clause. He has some leverage, but like not a ton. So ultimately, I don't think Deshaun Watson ends up here. And I think it's going to maybe be Matthew Stafford. And that worries me quite a bit. I mean, JP Finley, somebody I respect immensely. I disagreed with him wholeheartedly this past Saturday when he was tweeting out, would he trade the 19th pick for Stafford? Yes, he would. What are you kidding? Stafford plays half a season every year. I mean, okay, great. He's never had a running game. He shows good spurts where he looks really great, but you would really trade a first-round pick for Matthew Stafford? I mean, I think that's lunacy. I would much rather see how it plays out with the draft or go with what you've got than go with a guy who's been clobbered for how many years in Detroit because they don't exactly protect him well either. But knowing this franchise, I could totally see them getting Stafford. So, and then plus he's got the connection with the front office already. So I hope it doesn't happen, but I can totally see it.
Yeah, with referencing Martin Mayhew. Which by the way, bringing him back, we have to, as much as I've hammered the Washington football team in my columns over the years, I'm going to give them credit for having a commitment to diversity now. That is a franchise that I don't even think is up for debate, is inextricably linked to racism throughout most of its existence. So I think that you're the first franchise to have a black team president and a black general manager, and you have you have Ron Rivera as the head coach. I mean, and Jennifer King, it was announced today, is a full-time assistant coach now for the offense in the running backs. So I applaud them for having the commitment to diversity, and I think it's going to pay off for them. I think it's going to pay off big dividends for them in the long run.
And rewarding individuals who there's no question they deserve the positions they're in, whether we're talking about Jason Wright or
Mayhew still wears the stench from that winless season in Detroit, and he should not. And I think he gets an opportunity to really show what he can do here.
Well, no, and he will. And again, what a great story. Anybody that can go to law school and play football in a Super Bowl season, I think he can multitask, which the rumor is you have to do it. Well, the quarterback position is the position that keeps on giving. It'll be a topic for the next 52 weeks, of course, here on the WTOP Huddle, but at least we were able to squeeze that in. My final word, I'll get a little hockey in here. I had a conversation with Nick Backstrom this week, and I believe they're going to win another Stanley Cup. He's on the second year of a 5-year contract extension before he retires, because one thing, while we certainly appreciate and should Alex Ovechkin, I hope we're appreciating Nicholas Backstrom enough, because he gets overshadowed, understandably so, by Alex Ovechkin. But I think the bringing in of Peter Laviolette, it was a big move, because that's what the team needed, because it is a veteran team, and it is a team that's in a window that is closing. And I still cannot believe it took as long as it did for an Ovechkin team to win a Stanley Cup. They finally did. There's got to be another one in there, because you look at the history, Ovechkin's a generational player. Generational players, Gretzky, Lemieux, they win more than one Stanley Cup. And Nicholas Backstrom has certainly been an amazing co-star. With that, that'll do it for this week's WTOP Huddle. We covered everything, but always the quarterback position. That'll be with us next week, I'm sure, as well. Oh, by the way, there's a big game to talk about next week. The 55th Super Bowl, right? That's what 55.
I heard. Right.
LB.
Wow, that's beyond me with Roman numerals. As always, thanks for the time on the WTOP Huddle.
Break.
There it is.